There's a moment that happens every evening in these mountains. You can feel it if you're paying attention. It's not the sunset exactly, though that's part of it. It's the shift, the changeover. You'll be sitting on your porch, maybe shelling beans, or just watching the light drain out of the valley. And you'll notice the birds go quiet. Not all at once, but in a rolling wave that moves up the holler like something walking. The cicadas that have been screaming all afternoon just stop. And for maybe 30 seconds, there's nothing. No sound at all except your own breathing and the creak of the porch boards settling. Then the night woods wake up. It's not the same place you walked through that morning. The daylight woods. Those are predictable. Squirrels in the hickories, cardinals fussing in the laurel, your neighbor's dog barking down the road. But when that sun drops behind the ridge and the shadow crawls up from the creek bottoms, what's out there changes. The spaces between the trees get deeper. The trails you know by heart don't lead quite where you remember. Welcome back to Legends from the Holler. My grandmother used to say the mountains have two faces, the one they show the sun and the one they keep for themselves. This is about the second face, and the rules you follow if you want to stay in its good graces. The first rule, the one that'll keep you safest, is simple enough that even a child can remember it. You don't whistle after dark. Not on your porch, not walking to your truck, not ever. Because when the night woods are listening, a whistle is an invitation, and you never know what's going to accept it. My grandfather broke that rule once, when he was young and thought he knew better. He didn't whistle again for 40 years. Wouldn't even hum a tune after the sun went down. When I asked him why, he just looked at me with those slate gray eyes and said, "Because something whistled back, and it knew my name." To understand why whistling matters, you have to understand how sound works in these mountains. The Appalachians are old, older than the Rockies, older than the Alps. They've been worn down by time into something patient and listening. The hollows are shaped like funnels, like cupped hands, and they catch sound and hold it. An echo here doesn't just bounce, it lingers. It pulls in the low places where the fog settles thick as wool. Now, the woods at night are full of sound. Owls calling, branches rubbing in the wind, possums shuffling through the leaf litter, coyotes yipping on the ridge. It's chaos, all of it layered together, and that chaos is natural. It belongs. But a whistle is a pure tone, clean, singular. It cuts through all that natural noise like a knife through cheesecloth. It stands out. It announces you. It says, "Here I am. This is where I'm standing. This is me." In the daylight, that doesn't matter much. But at night, when things are moving through the spaces between, you don't want to be announced. There are things in these mountains that listen for sounds that don't belong. We call them different names depending on where you're from. Haints, the Notrite, the Walkers, the Thin Ones. But the old people, the ones who remember, they mostly just call them the Mimickers, because that's what they do. They mimic. A mimicker can't speak on its own. Can't make its own sounds. But it can copy. It hears a baby crying, it'll cry back. It hears a woman calling for help. It'll call the same way. Same words, same voice. And if it hears you whistle, short and sharp and human, it'll whistle back. And then it knows you're there. It knows where to find you. Some folks think it's just superstition, hill country nonsense. But there's a reason this rule survived generations. There's a reason every grandmother from here to the Smokies will slap the whistle right out of your mouth if you forget yourself after dark. It's not fear, it's knowledge. The Mimickers aren't evil. Exactly, they're just wrong. They exist in the margins, in the places where the world gets thin. And whistling, that clear human sound, it thins the world even more. It's like tapping on glass. Eventually, something notices. Eventually, the glass cracks. Now, there are rules beyond just don't whistle. The old laws go deeper, and if you're going to spend any time in these mountains, really spend time, not just pass through with your windows up, you'd best know them. Law 1. The rule of 3, if you whistle and you hear a whistle back, you stop, you don't move. You hold your breath and you listen. If it happens a second time, if that whistle comes back again, closer or farther, doesn't matter. You turn around. You don't look toward the sound. You look away and you start walking back toward light, toward your house, toward other people. But if it happens a third time, you run. You don't look for the source. You don't try to figure out if it's a person or a bird or anything rational. You get inside, you lock the doors, and you don't open them until morning. I don't care if you hear your own mother calling your name from the yard. I don't care if it sounds like a child lost in the woods. You don't open that door because the third whistle is the confirmation. The first might be coincidence. The second might be an animal. But the third means something heard you, and it's playing the game now. And the thing about mimickers, they don't get tired. They don't give up. They'll stand outside your house all night calling in your wife's voice, scratching at the door with what sounds like human fingernails, whistling the same tune you whistled over and over and over. My uncle heard 3 whistles once. Back in 1987, he made it inside, locked up tight. Said the whistling went on until dawn, circling the house. When he went out the next morning, there were prints in the dew all around the foundation. Barefoot prints, human-looking, except they had 6 toes, and they went right up to each window and stopped. Law 2. Do not whistle near running water. Water in these mountains is sacred and dangerous in equal measure. The creeks run fast and cold, fed by springs that come up from places we've never seen. The old folks say water is a conductor, not just of electricity, but of spirit. Sound travels along it. Intention travels along it. You whistle near running water at night, and that sound doesn't just disappear. It follows the creek. It moves downstream or upstream, touching every pool and eddy, and anything drinking from that water, anything bathing in it, anything living beneath it. They hear you. There's a spot down near Panther Creek where the water runs over flat stones and makes a sound like humming. People used to say you could hear voices in it if you listened long enough. A man named Dockery used to sit down there at dusk and whistle along with the creek. Thought it was pretty. Thought he was being clever. They found his boots on the bank 3 days later. He wasn't in them. Wasn't anywhere. The search party followed the creek for 5 miles in both directions and never found a trace. But folks who lived along that stretch said they heard whistling in the water for weeks afterward. A man's whistle, clear as day, even when the creek was low and quiet. They don't hear it anymore, but nobody whistles near Panther Creek, not even the kids. Law 3. The mockery. This one's harder to explain because it's about respect more than fear. The wind in these mountains has a voice. It moves through the pines with a low moan, rushes through the poplar leaves like water, hisses through the rhododendron thickets like something breathing. The mountain is always speaking, always singing to itself. When you whistle, you're imitating that. You're making a sound that belongs to the wind, to the breath of the mountain. And the mountain it notices. The old people call it mockery. Not in a mean way necessarily, but in the sense that you're pretending to be something you're not. You're taking a shape that doesn't belong to you, and in a place this old, where the boundaries between what's alive and what's aware are already thin. Mockery is dangerous. To whistle after dark is to challenge the wind, to say, I can make your sound, I can speak your language, and the wind will answer. Sometimes that answer is just a gust that slams your door shut. Sometimes it's a branch falling right where you were standing a second before. But sometimes the answer is something walking down from the high ridges with your whistle in its mouth, coming to see what dared to speak in its voice. My great-aunt Verna used to say, the mountain don't mind you living here, but it minds you forgetting your place. There's a story they tell up around Cades Cove, though you won't find it in any book. It's about a man named Jesse Harper, and it happened back in the autumn of 1953. Jesse was a logger, good at his work, kept to himself mostly. Lived in a cabin up a nameless holler that didn't even have a road, just a trail you could walk or ride a mule up. He'd come to town once a month for supplies, sell his timber, then disappear back into the trees. People liked him well enough. quiet man, respectful, but Jesse had a habit. He whistled while he worked. Old hymns mostly. Sometimes folk songs. It made the work go faster, he said. Kept his mind from wandering. His nearest neighbor, a woman named Ada who lived about a mile down the trail, she warned him, told him the old rules. Don't whistle after the sun drops. Don't whistle near the water. Don't whistle in mockery of the wind. Jesse smiled and thanked her kindly, but you could tell he didn't believe it. He was from Charleston originally, hadn't grown up with the old ways. That October, Ada started hearing whistling at night. Same hymns Jesse favored. She'd hear it coming from up the mountain, from the direction of his cabin long after dark. She thought about walking up there, warning him again, but something kept her inside. The whistling didn't sound quite right. The notes were perfect, but they were empty, like something had learned the shape of the sound without understanding what it meant. After a week of this, the whistling changed. It started moving. She'd hear it up near Jesse's place. Then an hour later it'd be closer, maybe halfway down the trail. Then closer still. One night she heard it right outside her window, and when she peeked through the curtain, she saw a shape standing at the edge of the trees. Tall, too tall, thin in a way that didn't look right, like something that had stretched itself trying to fit into a human outline. It whistled Amazing Grace, note perfect, and then it turned and walked back up the mountain. Ada left at first light, went to town, brought back the sheriff and 3 men. They hiked up to Jesse's cabin just after noon. The door was open. Coffee was still warm on the stove. His tools were laid out neat, his bed made, but Jesse was gone. They found his footprints leading away from the cabin, heading up toward the high ridges where the laurel grows so thick you can't see 3 feet in front of you. The prints just kept going, up and up, past where any reasonable person would stop, past where the trails end, into country so rough and steep that even hunters don't go there. The tracks finally stopped at a cliff edge that dropped 200 feet straight down into a boulder field. There was no body. Not in the rocks below. Not anywhere. Just his boots right there at the edge. Like he totally left them, then just vanished. But here's the part that stuck with folks. For months afterward, hikers on that ridge reported hearing whistling, Amazing Grace, over and over, coming from somewhere up in the laurel thickets. Some said it sounded like Jesse. Others said it sounded like something trying very hard to sound like him. Eventually, the whistling stopped. But if you go up there now to that nameless holler, you won't hear birds singing. You won't hear much of anything. The woods there are quiet in a way that feels wrong. Nobody who knows the story ever whistles within 5 miles of that place. Now, I'm not telling you these things to scare you. Fear's not the point. Fear makes you stupid. Makes you run when you should be still. Makes you freeze when you should be moving. The point is respect. These mountains were here long before us. They'll be here long after. The things that live in the margins, the haints, the walkers, the mimickers, whatever you want to call them. They were here first. This is their country. We're just borrowing it. The old laws aren't about keeping evil out. They're about maintaining balance, about acknowledging that we're not the only things that think and want and notice, about remembering that sound has power, and the night has rules, and there are some invitations you can't take back once they're offered. My grandmother used to keep a bowl of salt by the door and a broom across the threshold, not because she was afraid, but because she understood. She knew the old ways, the agreements that had been made generations back about how to coexist with what's always been here. She taught me that whistling after dark wasn't forbidden because it was dangerous, though it is. It's forbidden because it's disrespectful. It's loud in a place that values quiet. It's human noise in a space that belongs to something else. It says, I don't care about your rules. I'll do what I want. And in these mountains, that kind of arrogance gets answered. So if you're ever out here, really out here, past the paved roads and the cell towers and the false sense of safety that comes from streetlights, and you feel the urge to whistle as you're walking back to your cabin, as you're sitting on your porch watching the stars come out, As you're standing on a ridge watching the fog settle into the valleys, listen first. Listen to what the woods are saying. Listen to the wind moving through the trees. Listen to the silence that pools in the low places. And if you hear whistling already out there, somewhere in the dark, matching your rhythm before you've even made a sound, go inside, lock the door, and don't answer no matter how familiar the tune sounds, because the mountains remember everything, and they're always, always listening. Thank you for sitting a spell with me here at Legends from the Holler. If these stories spark something in you, a memory from your own kin or a chill you can't quite explain, I'd ask you to leave a comment below. Your stories are the threads that keep this culture woven together, and I read every single one. If you want to keep walking these ridges with me, hit that subscribe button and light the lantern by turning on notifications. It's the best way to make sure you don't lose your way back to the Holler. This episode is dedicated to the grandmothers, the healers, the keepers of the hearth, and the steady voices who whispered the old ways into our ears so we wouldn't forget. They understood that we are never truly alone on these hills. And to the Hollers themselves, may they forever hold their secrets close, and may we always be wise enough to listen. Until next time, keep your eyes on the shadows, your heart in the light, and remember, if the woods go silent, you should too. Good night, and take care.